beautiful.
All right, Ricardo. I hereby promise never to rat you out.
Sir, we'll go in and tell the owner that you're here. We'll be right back.
I don't understand. This is too beautiful to be so empty.
The owner was telling us that the people of the city forgot about it ever since the war started. In the first year of the war, the road that led here was frequented by masked runners.
Makes sense that people stopped coming.
What a pity.
I'm not shedding any tears. The more space we have to ourselves, the better, I say.
He's ready for you, sir.
Interesting. Oh look, there's no button prompt. It doesn't say press L. I bumped the controller that I have plugged in, and it went to controller input. Look at this. So this is left joystick. I'm just curious what the buttons do now. I can't imagine playing this game with a controller necessarily, but I guess it probably works just fine though. It's probably on those kinds of platforms. Oh, that's how so you press start to pause it, and then you can click on things like this by scrolling through them all one by one. Alright, well that's intuitive enough. I have zero reason to use that control scheme though. Alright, let's press L like adults. Amadea Invidious. Ever since meeting her, I have yet to be unsurprised by her actions. First, she exhibits traits and mannerisms none would expect from a member of the Dieci. Next, she proclaims a great interest in the Dimenticati and their history. A great interest... I'm sorry, but he refuses to come with us even at the prospect of learning one of the greatest mysteries about them. After that, she makes it clear that all it required for her to come aboard the investigation was a promise of a little wealth and a drop of aggression. There is only one kind of character I have come to recognize that would display traits as inconsistent as these. One with a shredded psyche, who is adrift, torn between a past, perhaps, and a crippling prospect of the future. I suspect she has lost herself somewhere in her history, and now spends her days wandering without a purpose, without a proper compass to guide her. That seems like a stretch. She didn't quite behave exactly how you expect her to, so you think she has a shattered psyche? That might be a bit of a stretch, honestly. Although it might be that these are a bunch of codex entries written about these characters in general, and maybe that is all true, and but because it's written from his perspective, it sounds like a leap for him to just magically know these things. That seems like a not reasonable thing to jump to for him, from what he knows so far. Cases such as this are all too common in Ombre, where so many yearn for second chances or a new lease on their lives. Many think severing the ties with the world which they had once lived in is an effective way of moving on from tragedy, or coping with the loss of a sort. I know this, for I speak from experience. Traveling to the Cavalli Plains was my chance to start afresh, I believed, but as much as I tried not to think of the war, of my brother, the more I tried to cut out the past, tried to cut the past out of the present, the more it shaped me, defined me, paralyzed me. It turned out, I turned to spirits and wines as relief, and ventured into dark areas of the mind that I'd rather not recount. I did all this, and still, it was not enough, and now I see hints of similar situation in her. I'm not intending on bringing her along so that I can act as a counselor, but if I might be able to provide a relief of some sort, the path I'd once tread is a path I'd like to see no others journeying on. Yeah, I don't know about that, dude. It honestly seems like he's leaping pretty far to get to those kinds of crazy conclusions from only a handful of tiny, micro conversations with this character. But he certainly seems to be strong on projecting his own life on other people. It's like, oh, you must be like me, because you remind me of me, so you have my past. The Estiguary. Located in the shore of shadows, the border between the light of the sun and the shadow of the mountain, that moves across the city as the day progresses. The Estiguary is an establishment that belongs to a good friend of mine, Leventhos Merembos. I'd never seen it before my return to Ombre. I am more familiar with the Leaping Lion, Leventhos' previous inn, but I must say that the Estiguary's facade is appropriately reflective of its owner's personality. Despite being the center of a dark city, the Estiguary remains beautiful and warm. Leventhos is very much the same, though he lives in a city of shadows and deception. He lets none of them into his heart. I want to meet this character. He sounds like fun. Any little details around here? We've got donkeys, or I guess pack mules, as you might call them. I don't know if they actually are mules or not, but they do have packs on their backs. I actually don't know how to... I haven't spent enough time around donkeys or mules to distinguish them visually, or have a mental picture in my head of the differences at least. But mules are weird. Horses cross with donkeys to create a weird infertile offspring that we keep making over and over again.
All right. Let's see.
Cicero?
Hello, Ven.
Wait,
You know each other.
What? I don't believe it.
How have you been?
I should be asking you that question, you rascal. Why didn't you tell me you were bringing him?
We didn't know that.
Well, why don't the lot of you find some rooms that suit you? As you can tell, the entire place is basically yours.
About that, Ven. The twins were saying something about price.
Cicero, please. What do you think I am? The kind of man who swindles his friends? No, that treatment is reserved for the dastardly. You stay here for free.
Ven, I can't.
I insist.
And I insist not. You will take something, or I'm afraid I'm going to have to walk out.
All right. But remember, you insisted. Now, please,
Ages, Lucia. You had me worried.
Is this a bad time? I was out in the Pale Isle when I saw you leave the spire. I hope you don't mind that I followed you. I thought it'd be prudent for me to offer an apology.
The rest of you, call it a night. Get a room, get comfortable. I'm certain Leventhus over here can get you all settled in.
Definitely. We won't disturb. Promise.
All right. About suggesting that Avestus call you back, Cicero,
You can pay me back by telling me all you know about the Masquerines.
Sorry?
Come on, you're hard of hearing now. You said you were investigating them, yes?
Unbelievable. All right. Over drinks?
Sounds like a plan. So, first things first. This herald.
Fractured.
Lucius says that ever since the War of Bearings began, the Masquerines have been fragmenting, returning back to their factions, the way things were before my brother.
And which faction has Razatov?
They call themselves the Dactytes. They're the ones we met at the Quiet Order.
Led by the Herald.
Exactly.
And what do you plan to do?
Find this herald and get Razatov back. Simple as that.
There you are. Is she the result of the cleaver?
Result?
How did you find us?
I returned to the White Spire this morning. Inspectory Lucia was there. Apparently, she'd been here for most of last night.
Can't hide forever.
Marshal, this is Armadea. She'll be lending us her expertise in the Dementicate.
You've spoken to her of the artifacts, then?
We have.
So, what are they? What do they do?
We're not entirely sure yet. Our leads in the cleaver were destroyed.
What are your plans now?
We need to get Razatov back from the Masquerines, a faction of them called the Dactytes to be specific, and we're going to do that by finding the Herald, their leader.
Direct. How refreshing. And how do you intend to find this herald?
By finding Lysandra Rorik.
What?
The leader of the Mask Runners.
Make a distinction, Marshal. Lysandra leads the Melakate. They're not the Masquerines with Razatov.
Just tell me which groups I should be taking note of.
The first, the Dactytes, a new faction led by the Herald who have Razatov. The second were remains of the Melakate, led by Lysandra, my brother's second in command.
And you want to find her because you believe she can lead us to the Herald?
Yes, and Lucia concurs.
Inspectory, those are mask runners you're talking about associating yourself with.
We're not colluding with them. We just need information.
They are fugitives of the law.
If you have another suggestion on how we should find Razatov, please, I'm all ears.
I hope you know what you're doing.
To find her, Lucia has suggested that we turn to a character called the Bloodless.
I suppose that is a smart move.
No.
Lucia didn't tell me very much about the man.
He is a man without honor.
He is a smart man of the Laboris Solus who recognizes the power of information and secrets. If there is anyone that can track a person down in the city, it is him.
The Luca have spent years attempting to locate this man. He's crossed more than a few of my guild's boundaries.
Note that we are not here to tend to the Golden Guild's interests.
You might not be.
You think Favio will be happy with you stopping this investigation just to catch one man?
Oh, fine. I will not act against him.
I do not trust him.
Calden.
I am sorry, Cicero, but there are entities in this city that I do not wish to be involved with.
For the sake of your brother, even?
As long as I don't ever have anything to do with him.
And how do you intend to establish contact with this enigma?
You seem to know a thing or two about him.
I've worked with one of his messengers before, Vasco Tessitore. He's often found in a tavern called the Bleeding Beetle. That is our best bet.
Then what are we waiting for?
Oh my goodness. So interesting, we just triggered chapter 2. So apparently this game has chapters, and we're in the second one. I wonder how many there are total then? But also, the moment we got here, I'm like, oh, interesting. We have an inn that's outside of the main part of the city, and it's led by somebody who likes us so much that they let us stay here for free. This sure seems like it would be the usual sort of base of operations for an RPG, because almost every RPG has like a place where your party hangs out, and all the important NPCs can hang out, and if you like don't have a party member in your party, they can stay here, because like obviously we already have 4 characters, and only 3 can be in my party at once as far as I can tell. And that really got the deal sealed when both a non-party NPC showed up here, and then my 4th party member also showed up here, back to back. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is we're probably going to see this place throughout the game, if I'm not wrong. Although the game's practically linear, so I don't know if that even plays a role then. Maybe it'll just be, from a storytelling perspective, a place we can keep revisiting. We'll see. Also, more lore. Sierra Verde.
What do you want?
You seem troubled.
I stick with you for one day, and already I'm part of plans to venture into the darkest parts of the city. Masquerades, the Bloodless.
It is often in the shadows do secrets hide. And we are chasing big secrets.
What do you think the city will be like once we find Razatov and the artifacts?
Well, Mascherines will no longer be scarce, which means the fundamental threads that our society has been woven from will change. How that even begins to affect our world. The guilds might not even need to exist. The titles of Contadani and Masquerada might cease to mean anything. I really don't know.
I suppose we'll find out.
Yep, we're at the cusp of something that could reshape the entire world around us, more or less. And more updates on top of that. Locations, let's see here. Sierra Verde. The mountain Sierra Verde has watched over the Ombre since its inception and sheltered it from harsh weather. None have been able to explain the strange wound in the mountain, in which the city nestles cozily, or how the mountain is still able to stand despite the gash at its base. In fact, little is known about the mountain at all. It has been around since the time of the Dimenticate. Some extant records mention it, and the primary geological component of the mountain, a rock called Ombrian, cannot be branded, but that is close to all the knowledge we have on it. How the mountain came to be, and what relationship it had, and perhaps still has, with the lands around it, remain mysteries. This city is in a gash in the mountain, huh? That sounds like a setup for a doomsday situation to me, honestly. I imagine a big climax where we're moments away from some great calamity where the mountain collapses upon the city and destroys it. We'll see. The Herald Part 3. If we are to find Razatov, it is clear that this herald is our best lead. We aren't going to get anywhere without any information about the identity of this herald. However, I believe I know just the person that might be able to help us with that. Any case notes, by the way? Nope, still on day 1, and it appears we had a nighttime transition, so it should be day 2 once we have new notes. Anything up here? Oh, there's stuff all over the place, huh? Hello.
Sure you don't want to come?
Yes.
He's going to help us find your brother, you know.
Then I'll be glad when he does.
I'll see you later, then.
People are getting touchy about this. I guess this is our chance to get our 5th and final party member if we're gonna head off with only one yeah, that actually seems like a setup to me. If we're gonna leave with one party member and not the other two, it definitely feels like we're setting up to meet the final party member and need an empty slot. Kind of feels like that's why Tiziana left in the first place. Calden. Calden's response to the Bloodless has been unkind at best, savage at worst. What is it about the information broker that provokes him so? It must be whatever he's keeping from me. I should see if I can sieve out any further details. So far, no good. Tiziana de Felici, Part 5. So the first lie has been fed. I cannot let her know that we have discovered the functions of the artifacts that Razatov searches for. If she knows that they have the ability to create Mascherines, that will only advance to hasten the Luca's involvement. The Golden Guild needs to be kept out of this for as long as possible. I am not unfamiliar with the toxic rewards to be reaped from a lie sowed, or how quickly and violently deception can destroy acquaintanceships. Wow, acquaintanceships is not a word I've ever seen before, not put that way anyway, if left to fester. I expect she will not be the least bit pleased when, or if, she finds out that we've been keeping this information from her. But again, I cannot let that interfere with the advances of the investigation. Do what you must, Marshal, and so will I. So if I had to keep that kind of secret from somebody, and it was necessary, but it was temporary, the way that he seems to be acknowledging it would be, my approach would be to go ahead and know the thing that they know, that they shouldn't know. Don't tell them. Continue the adventure for a while, and then when you think it's time, you can't keep it a secret anymore, you pretend to discover it then for the first time, and then it doesn't seem like it was a secret, and then there's very little reason for them to find out that you knew it all for longer than they think you did. But who knows how that'll turn out. I'm sure there'll be drama.
Ven, are you still interested in that hobby of yours? Collecting stones and fine metals and all that?
I haven't changed that much.
Well, have a look at this, please, and tell me all you can of it.
What is it?
I was hoping you could tell me. I have a feeling it's got at least a few, special properties.
I'll do some tests and measurements and get back to you about it when you return.
One last thing. Don't tell the Marshal about it, if you could.
My lips are sealed.
Sneaky, sneaky. Where is he? Where is he hiding? Oh, we're already on him, never mind. Oh, the first member of the Marimbus family. Levanthos Marimbus Part 1. It is difficult to talk about Levanthos without smiling. The man truly is a joy to be around, an attribute that is scarce to be found in Ombre. Many who know me know that Levanthos has been a large part of my life for a long time, but if I am to describe my relationship with the man, we must first start at the beginning. Runic, just off the waters. Cyrus subtly motioned with the finger of his free hand. He held the digits of his signing hand just beside his ear, so it looked like he was playing with his hair or picking his nails. It was a decent enough cover for communicating with street sign. No guards, he signed, which was unusual for the docks. Others called us foolish for deciding that this was a good spot to find prey, but Cyrus and I knew what we were doing. The fact that there were often significantly more guards at the docks than there were at other notorious hunting spots not only meant that we'd have to deal with less competition, but also that the pilfering would be easier. Guards were just as aware of the reputations of certain places as we were, and they acted accordingly. Following my brother's gaze, I saw the man he'd been referring to, tall and lanky, with the trademark ebony black hair and pale skin of the runic people. Indeed, guessing by the style of attire he'd chosen to don, he mustn't have been there very long, and his features. Runic people were infamous for their youthful looks, but this man couldn't have been more than a decade older than I was. What was a young runic man who I'd guessed had barely started his third decade of life doing here? What was a young runic man who I'd guessed had barely started his third decade of life doing here? I waited till my brother looked over. Look at the clothes. And face too. Young. First trip? Must be, he signed back. I nodded. Waiting for you. Cyrus returned the slightest of nods and brought his free hand back to the book in front of him to turn a page. Glances slowly began falling onto my brother as he started to lower his cover. He made the peepholes in the book he was reading a little more obvious. He held the book a little higher and allowed a brown page or two of empty paper to fall out of it. To anyone who just started watching him, it was clear. He was a street rat, a lousy one at that, scanning for prey. They wouldn't do anything to him, not unless he moved. He wasn't worth their time. But he wasn't the one that lost the coin flip today. So he's So they're both street rats marking prey, basically, but he's very explicitly making himself obvious as a distraction, it looks like. I think. I shuffled through the crowd, my walk filled with purpose. I was a young dock worker who'd been told his salary for the month would be halved for breaking that stupid precious tesseract vase from yesterday's shipment. I frowned. I wasn't happy. People would catch on to that. They'd excuse my rough shoves. My journey through I think that's role-playing, by the way. I think that's his first-person narrative of the character he's playing in order to blend in and look like a normal person instead of somebody that's going after a mark. My journey through the mire of flesh and odors and sounds was just one of many plain journeys throughout the crowd. And any eyes that should have been wary of me all had much brighter target to keep watch over, the pathetic excuse for a pilferer that was my brother. I reached the runic man in a few short moments and sidled up beside him, helping him unload one of the shipments from the boat. I hear the winds from Rune are roughens this time of year, I grunted, burning my voice a little. A little brine in throat and salty fish between my teeth would finish the accent. We put the shipment down and he made a shh noise. Must have been a runic grunt or something. He turned to me. Thank you for that, but I don't remember asking for anyone. At least he had come with a healthy dose of skepticism. Nah? I asked, cocking my head to the side. But the boss over here said you needed help, I said, pointing off behind him at one of the dockmasters. He turned his head to follow my finger. I'm sorry, I really don't, but I was gone. The snatch was perfectly executed. He tied his purse to his trousers with a typical runic knot. A simple lift of the knot's inner coil and a quick tug of the outer string was enough to release the catch into my hands. I blended into the crowd almost as quickly as I had emerged from it, and I caught my brother's eye. I raised a single eyebrow in a smirk, but my expression quickly faded as he waved at me, desperate. My grin quickly turned into a frown. What? Did I pick the wrong man? Purse! No! He gesticulated frantically. I stopped at my tracks. What was it? I looked down at the purse in my hands and cupped the bottom, feeling its contents. They were hard. I tugged open the strings and turned the pouch upside down, and as contents fell out in my palm. Whatever it was jingled on its way out. So what could else could it? Whoa, that is a typo. I'm not crazy. So what else could it possibly have been but 7 small black pellets fell into my palm. I hadn't instantly recognized them, though my curiosity at that moment drowned out the disappointment that they weren't crescents. They had a distinct smell, and it scratched at some buried part of my memory, but I couldn't quite identify what they were. Rolling one between my fingers, I made note of its features. It was hard and dense and smooth and oddly familiar. Where had I seen these before? I looked back up at my brother and began to sign. I frowned. My brother wasn't looking at me, but his eyes were wide open and his mouth agape. Why wasn't he looking at... I spun around and followed his gaze, watching as the shipment I had just helped unload came to life. The lid of the wooden box shattered, sending splinters flying into the air and people screaming. As a winged serpent, perhaps the size of a large dog, burst into the air. A viper tail. I looked back at the pellets in my hand, and the smell almost overwhelmed me with recognition. Dried blood vine seeds, catnip of viper tails. My throat parched very suddenly as I looked up to my brother and his moving fingers. Run. He hadn't needed to sign that twice. So I'm assuming that the character that he robbed was Levantos? And maybe we'll meet more of the family over time? That's interesting. So they brought a calamity on the docks one day by taking the only thing that was pacifying monsters that were being stored. Whoops. May want to rethink that one in the future, huh? Oh my god. It's a reading episode, huh? Alright. Day 2, Part 1. 4th of Sendera, 407 IL. I never enjoyed writing in loose sheets. Leather-bound journals have always been my preferred medium of note-taking, and if I'm going to commit to this investigation, then this is where my thoughts will go. A brief summary of the investigation thus far. Razatov has been captured by mask runners while researching the origins of Mascherines and how they were created. His investigations led him in search of 3 artifacts responsible for the creation of Mascherines called the Heart, the Seed, and the Knife. Collectively, they were known as the Treror. Alright, in the Cleaver, we learned that he knew that, where to find these artifacts, but our leads ended there. There are a few other loose ends that need to be wrapped up as well. There was a stone found in Razatov's office in the White Spire that we have yet to understand its purpose or function. Also, Razatov has been looking into the creation of Fae. He stored up a handful of them in glass jars in his office, but what that has to do with anything is unclear. Our next major step is the investigation. Is finding a figure called the Herald, leader of the Dactytes, the group of mask runners that have taken Razatov. And to do that, we are going to go to an information broker called the Bloodless. Hopefully, he can tell us directly of the Herald and where to find him. But in the case that he cannot, he should at least be able to lead us to Lysandra, the leader of the Malacarte, the remnants of the mask runner faction that my brother led. I am hoping that she, as a mask runner herself, will be able to tell us more if need be. My discomfort with the mask runners has not gone away in the least, but I cannot let that stand in the way of my duty. I figure we'll just do all these as they show up, because otherwise they're just going to pile up, and I'm just going to end up skipping them anyway. There's no good time necessarily to come back to them, because they're pretty consistently coming in. The Bloodless. So this is the person we're about to go meet. I suppose it's finally time the shadows of Ombre coalesced into an entity. The other countries all have had masters of secrets for a while already, some more publicly known than others. Tessera had the Rayasham, Rune had its Tezeraya family, Elysia had its Mindweaver, and now Ombre has the Bloodless. Of course, none of the true identities of the other countries' masters of secrets, save runes, are public pieces of knowledge. As an inspectori, however, I have access to these resources slightly more readily than the most. All I can say is that it a pity. I think that's another typo. All I can say is that it's a pity that the Bloodless hasn't made an appearance some years earlier. I imagine a substantial number of my cases would have been made much simpler had I this reportedly well-informed character to turn to. I'm curious how deeply involved in the investigation he's going to be, and wary of the price he's planning on exacting for his assistance. I would not be surprised if he's Vasco Testatore, but we'll see. Factions? The Dactytes of the Mask Runners. The Dactytes are a relatively new faction of the Mask Runners. I've never heard of them before my return to Ombre, and admittedly, am uncomfortable with this lack of knowledge. Hopefully, this investigation will shed more light on the faction, though at the same time I am hopeful that we do not have to interact too intimately with them. Yeah, I hope not, because they seem rather warlike so far. They seem to be up to something naughty. Very, very naughty. Wow. 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 Flashbacks to Courage the Cowardly Dog. I'm sorry. That came out of nowhere.
Where did you go?
Don't be stupid.
You've seen how he is. He's a good man, Elena.
Even good men have standards.
I hope you're not talking about me.
Sir!
Sir, we were just...
Nothing.
You were just nothing? Well, if that's really the case...
We'd like to practice the Visifer, sir.
Brother!
Both of you?
I apologize, sir. My brother.
Let him speak.
Yes, the both of us, sir. Meliari for myself and Messeniari for my sister.
Well, if you want to practice the Visiva, you're going to need a piece of equipment from a Masquerada, aren't you?
Yes, sir, but we understand if you don't want to do this. After all, we have nothing to our name and no credentials and...
Will this do?
Sir...
That's not an answer.
What? It would do fantastically, sir. There's enough space for the inscriptions involved in Meliare.
And the blade is more than enough to paint on. Are you sure, sir?
Well, the worst that could happen is I get an ugly blade back, isn't it?
All right, just a minute, sir. We'll do some basic forms.
Now, a moment of truth. The energies do flow smoother.
It worked, brother!
I don't believe it. Thank you, sir.
Well, if there's anything more I can do...
Sigils, sir. Anything that has complicated Dementicate symbols. I'd like to try my hand at the more complex workings.
Well, I'll keep an eye out. And you, Elena?
If you could find plants of the more exotic variety, I could use their dyes. A larger palette drastically alters the effects of Messeniare.
I'll bring back anything I can find. Now, hold on. Since you're both trained in the Visiva, you think you could handle this?
Raw Mascherines.
I don't intend on getting bogged down with the documentation if I have to go through the registry's artisans to get these touched up.
Sir, this is basic work. We can get these up to scratch in no time.
Good. Until then, however, we have business to attend to.
Where, sir?
An establishment called the Bleeding Beetle. You know of it?
It's one of our favorite haunts, sir.
Excellent. Off we go then.
Whoa! Alright, those are all popping up. So that's interesting. I should have seen that coming too once I saw this blacksmith area over here. So this definitely is our new hideout then, our new base of operations, because on top of being an inn that we're all free to stay in, which is kind of a key thing when you have NPCs in your party that you can't keep all around at once. They have to have a base of operations to hang out in. But now we also have an upgrade station and also a way to identify, finally paint these Mascherines I've been collecting that don't have anything on them yet. What's this here? The Visifa, Meliare and Messeniare. The Vivisa revolve around aesthetically enhancing the equipment of Masquerada, from their wardrobe to their weapons to Mascherines even. In order to bolster their abilities, these augmentations take the form of engravings in Meliare and painted symbols in Messeniare, and both assist the Masquerada who wear the equipment to better channel their powers. The Visiva are unique among the media, for their engravings needn't necessarily be performed by a person in possession of a Masquerine. Yes, a Masquerine is needed in order to benefit from the augmentations, but the actual process of the application of such enhancements can be done by even Contadani, however rare that might be. So we have an upgrade system now. And down here we have a new gameplay system. Only one more after this one. Inks and engravings. Speaking to those people, let's see, I actually don't know, this one's not as intuitive, so let's check it out. Speaking with the twins outside the estuary will allow you to equip various inks and engravings you find during your travels around the city. In order to harness the effects of either the ink or engravings, one must be paired with the other. The chosen engraving increases the character's base damage by a specific percentage, while at the same time determining the probability that an auto attack will trigger the effects of the chosen ink. Interesting. This is the game's chance to differentiate itself a bit. Alright, so here's where we go. So for you, Cicero, we can pick an ink. Oh, so up doesn't work here, but down takes me to Dusilg. Restores 2% mask charge if it works. Oh, engravings and a result. Okay, so this engraving gives you 25% bonus damage and 20% proc chance. That's pretty cool. So that proc chance will cause mask charge to restore. Oh, they're all summarized over here too. Okay. I have no other variations anywhere, do I? We go all the way to the bottom? Nope. Having to press up and down over and over again might be a little iffy as far as mechanics go, but alright. Can everyone get the same thing? I would gladly give everyone a 25% damage boost for starters. Can't do it for the last guy, obviously, because they don't exist yet. Alright. So, all of my characters have a 25% bonus damage and a 20% chance of restoring 2% mask charge, which is not bad. A little bit of mask regeneration never hurt anybody, except for the bad guys, am I right? I'm an idiot sometimes, I'm sorry. There we go, let's get out of here.
Inspectore, if you don't mind me asking, you're awfully familiar with the owner of the tavern.
He was a close friend of my family's when I was younger. Before I joined the portiere, he shared his purse with us. Helped us get through rough times.
That's sweet.
And naive. Most Contadani can't even fend for themselves. What sense is there in sharing?
What sense is there in not keeping everything to yourself? What's the use?
Ah, the stone-cold girl finally shows a sliver of a heart.
It just doesn't make sense.
Oh, for some reason I thought Amadeo was staying behind.